The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. I believe I have a much improved audio situation today. I have a completely different microphone that I'm using. And as far as you're able to tell, Pat, it seems like we are definitely in better shape than yesterday, right?
Wait, I can't hear you. What did you say there? Can you repeat that? No,
Anyway,
it's a lot better. It's a lot better.
The background noise is low. And actually, the quality of this microphone that I'm using is really not bad. And I think maybe the process should be that instead of trying to get the best possible microphone and getting additional pieces of equipment to connect it to my mobile setup, I'm better off just getting microphones designed to be plugged into computers. And it seems to just eliminate pieces of the signal chain and sound better in the end.
It is frustrating in a sense, though, because the microphone you were using yesterday costs like $400 or $500, whereas the one that you're using today only costs about $100. So you'd imagine that yesterday we would have had far better audio quality, but alas, that's just not how it is. It's just not the best for a mobile setup.
Yep, and there's and part of the thing also is I know the right way to hook up XLR mics to a laptop, which is to get a proper USB audio interface that is not just this little converter I had yesterday. But my whole point is I want to reduce the size of the mobile setup as much as possible, because like when I did the Europe thing a year ago, I was going around with an insanely heavy backpack. The camera was huge. The tripod was huge. I needed like 6 total cables. I had a mixer and all this stuff. The whole point is reduce the number of pieces. And if in order to have that mic work, I need a USB XLR interface, like those are relatively sizable pieces of equipment if the idea is to put everything in a bag. But alas, I think, Pat, that these are first world problems, as the kids say these days.
Yeah, I think they are in a sense. I hope we didn't get too many people angry with us yesterday about the audio quality.
Yeah.
There are all those audio files out there, I'm sure, though, and I bet we heard from a good amount of them. I got to check.
I heard from 7 people who were upset with me about the audio quality, but hopefully they will be more pleased today. So let's get right into it. So during the Democratic presidential debate last week, Andrew Yang said he is announcing that he is going to give away $120,000. It's going to be $1,000 a month for 10 families for a year. 450,000 people have entered the raffle to receive $1,000 per month through his campaign website. A number of questions here. Number one, is this a lottery in some way and therefore illegal? I believe that the answer is no, and I know that Andrew Yang obviously looked at the legality of that. Number two, who is going to be chosen in the end and what exactly is the mechanism? I believe that everybody who qualifies, it's just going to be a random raffle, and those individuals will be selected, and of course they will be followed, and how they use the money will be heavily used by Andrew Yang for the furtherance of promoting his freedom dividend in his campaign. I have to tell you, that one of the criticisms of Andrew Yang has been, as a businessman, he sees politics as consulting projects. You just got to bring in the right consultants and you figure out how to project manage the thing in a similar way that if you're having a problem with an app, you just bring in the people with the expertise and you fix it. And some people are critical of Andrew Yang because of that. And some people like Andrew Yang because of that. They say he's separating from ideology and just managing these things as projects to be solved. This is definitely one of those things where, on the one hand, it's a very practical way to get people visiting your campaign website, potentially donating to you and increasing your exposure. On the other hand, there's immediately allegations that he is effectively buying votes. Now, I will say, I don't know that I get that there's a literal thing where he's giving 10 families money. But politicians often make promises that are financially impactful to voters. And either way, there's a group on the right that says when you promise people free healthcare, you're effectively trying to buy votes. Is this really any different? I don't know. I mean, it feels different, but I don't know that it is.
Yeah, and it could raise some big legal battle. Andrew Yang says that he's sound from a legal perspective doing this, and he has a team of lawyers that are going to back him up. But yeah, is there a quid pro quo thing going on? Because I think that's when it would get a little bit suspicious. And I guess there are some experts saying that the raffle proposal is legal because it's not like Andrew Yang is asking the voters for anything in return. But it does kind of feel like that in a sense, right? Like it feels as if, well, maybe, he's requesting people to support him, and even people that don't win the lottery He's making it seem as though, well, if only I become president, then everyone's going to get a freedom dividend and everyone's going to get that $1,000 in a month.
Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of the point, right? That's the whole hallmark of his campaign. So I don't see a problem with it.
I just don't think that, listen, if he's trying to buy votes this way, he's not going to buy that many more than 10 votes. I mean, this goes to 10 families, and I get what you're saying. Other people might see it and say, oh, they got their money. Now I'm going to vote for him because then I'm going to get my money as well. I have no problem with this. I think that this is something that someone does when he says he knows he's eventually going to win the nomination and be president. I think he knows that he's not. And I think that this is only something that you do once you sort of come to terms with that and recognize that you're in a position where how much attention can I get? This is an interesting way to do it, but it's not something that's going to be taken seriously as a policy thing by virtue of him giving 10 families the money. I have no problem with him doing it, and I think it's amazing that he's been able to get the name recognition and build the interest that he's built so far.
Well, a couple things. When he announced this, that he was going to be giving away $1,000 a month to 10 families on the debate stage, I figured, well, maybe you have to write up a little bit about your circumstances, what you're going to use the money for.
Right.
Maybe you have some medical debt to pay off, or you have car repairs to take care of, or you want to send your kids to school. And then upon looking at it further, it doesn't seem like you have to do any of that. You just have to give your basic information. And that makes all the sense in the world, I think, because the whole idea of Andrew Yang's UBI is that it goes to everyone. It's a universal program. So some people are well off and they'll get it. Some people are not so well off and they have bills to pay and they'll get it too. And I think that's kind of in keeping with the plan that he has for the entire country. And then the other point I wanted to bring up was, what did you think about when Andrew Yang announced the proposal and Kamala Harris was laughing at him? Pete Buttigieg was kind of chuckling, saying, well, it's original, I'll give you that. It seems as if these other candidates aren't really taking him so seriously, even though he's polling at 6th place.
They're not. And I know that the Yang Gang people are saying that everybody's laughing at him, but he's going to win this thing. It's like, no, he's not going to win this thing, but I think it's fine what he's doing. This is how he started the campaign on UBI. He expanded it, and as he has said, put out 80 to 100 or however many policy proposals. That's fine. And now he's going back to UBI. And yeah, the reaction on the stage was a little bit condescending. But hey, you know what? If voters don't like the condescending response, they can say, I'm going to vote for Andrew Yang instead of whoever laughed, because I like it better, and the free market of ideas will ultimately prevail. And that's, I think, kind of the bottom line.
Kind of reminds me of Bernie Sanders' run in 2016. I never really thought that Bernie had a chance of winning. I always thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win that election. And at the time, everyone was laughing at Bernie. Everyone was laughing at his ideas. Medicare for all, we can't possibly do that. Free college, we can't possibly do that. Now he's like the standard bearer of the party, and he has an excellent shot of actually winning this thing this time around. So even though Andrew Yang probably isn't going to win this time, maybe if he runs again, he can have a shot at it, or at the very least, the UBI proposal can become a little bit more mainstream in the future, and that I would take as a victory as well. You certainly never know what sort of effect this could have in campaigns to come, and this is why we have the primaries, to see who actually gets the votes. I'm going to turn down my mic a little bit. I think I might be a little too, I don't want to blow out anyone's eardrums, please. We talked on the regular show about how Donald Trump showed up to a New Mexico rally yesterday, and he started talking about Hispanics, and people heckled him, and he lied about Hispanics want the wall. No, we don't. This is my new thing, by the way. Anytime I talk about Hispanics, I use the term we. He talks about, all these other things that just aren't true. But this actually seems to be something Donald Trump is sort of interested in, turning New Mexico blue. John McCain lost New Mexico by nearly 15 percentage points and in 2008. In 2012, Mitt Romney ended up losing by 51 points in the Santa Fe area, an extremely liberal area of New Mexico. And I find myself sort of unmoved. I mean, it's like, listen, the polls say Trump is getting crushed in a bunch of key swing states. So going to New Mexico and trying to win it, the value of it electorally is probably relatively small compared to trying to catch up in some of those other swing states where he's behind. It's a publicity ploy. It's, hey, remember how I talked about black people and how great black people are in 2016? Now I'm doing Hispanics, and maybe it's in the context of the immigration debate. But I find myself sort of saying, dude, do whatever you want. Ultimately, it's going to be turnout. You might get crushed. You might win, but New Mexico's not going to be the difference maker. Yeah, it's too far out to say what's going to happen in New Mexico and for the race at large. My initial reaction to it is that he has no chance of winning New Mexico.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would have said the same thing 4 years ago about him winning Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, and he won those 3 states. So yeah, Trump's going to make a push for New Mexico. He's going to make a push for Minnesota. I don't think he has a shot at Minnesota. Maine, the entire state of Maine, I also don't think he has a shot there. But, you kind of have to admire the fact that he's like going out there and trying to push the boundaries of what a Republican can win, right? Because like that's what he did in 2016. That was his approach, and he ended up pulling it off.
Yeah, I think what he's just missing, though, is that there's no way he's going to win more traditionally blue states if he loses the swing states. Like he's sort of, we do this thing where sometimes when we follow these elections, we pretend like, okay, let's look at Texas. Could Texas go blue? And what we're ignoring is that if Texas goes blue, the entire country will likely have gone incredibly blue to the point where Texas will actually be nothing more than a curiosity. And there's this kind of same idea, like he's going to New Mexico. If Trump wins New Mexico, he will likely have absolutely crushed the 2020 election because it will be such a redward swing that New Mexico will in the end be irrelevant. And that's why it feels more like a publicity game than an actual electoral strategy, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I do agree there. I mean, I think it's possible that, like a Democratic candidate could win Texas but lose the Rust Belt. I think just like with the demographic changes that we're seeing, that could happen. Maybe not necessarily in 2020, but down the road. Certainly, though, like these regions tend to vote similar. So if Trump wins New Mexico, that means he won Texas too, for sure. May even mean that he won Arizona and possibly even Colorado. So I think there's like this sort of like regional divide that we still have in this country where you can't necessarily say that if he wins at one corner of the country, he won't win at the other corner of the country. But certainly those trends do hold up. And yeah, I'm really, really getting excited for this election in a sense. I want to see him get crushed all across the country.
Well, he may get reelected, so I hope you're braced for that. The Arizona Supreme Court has granted businesses a right to discriminate against same-sex couples. This happened yesterday. It was a 4-3 vote, and what they've done is they've put in place an exemption to Phoenix's human rights ordinance to let businesses refuse to sell custom wedding invitations to gay customers. And the decision is rooted in the Arizona Constitution. It's effectively insulated from being reviewed by the U.S. Supreme Court because, again, it is based on what is the Arizona Constitution. And it is potentially going to give Arizona wedding vendors a broad right to discriminate in the name of free speech. There are legal details we could go into, which I don't think will really change our understanding of the story or the scope of our analysis. But what is increasingly becoming true, and we knew that this would happen back in 2015, I think it was June of 2015 when the Supreme Court said states cannot ban same-sex marriage anymore. Landmark decision. We said, and many people said, this was not a unique position that I took, that the new battle lines of LGBT discrimination will be, number one, continuing along being able to fire people for their real or perceived sexual orientation. And number two, the issue of business discrimination along the lines of religious freedom. And then we had the Baker case from Colorado and a whole bunch of others. And these are the sort of new battle lines of this. And I'm optimistic, Pat, that even though this is a decision that we don't like to see, I still think that the broader momentum is pretty clear here in terms of where things are going on LGBT rights. And I hope that this is just a little blip.
Yeah, it seems like even conservatives aren't willing to argue same-sex marriage anymore. I think that they, for the most part, view that ship has sailed. Certainly there are like the evangelical, like hard right fundamentalist folks out there who want to make it an issue again. But I think for the most of us and most of conservatives, I think it's pretty settled. However, they're still willing to have these sorts of fights, and they don't want to see sexual orientation made a protected class, as it should be across every state in the country. I think that this is the new fight, and we're also seeing like the importance of just getting out the vote because this was a 4-3 decision in the Arizona Supreme Court. And the governor of Arizona is the one choosing who goes to the Supreme Court there. And if it was a Democratic governor in that state, then we would have probably a different result here, and that's something that's going to affect the lives of many, many Arizonans.
Yeah, I think that if assuming we don't get into a completely destructive war under Donald Trump, I think that the legacy of the Trump era may end up being the rightward shift of courts at all levels. And that includes the Supreme Court, and that includes federal judges, and this includes within states as a result of the decisions that are being made by Republican governors. That may... I'm hoping that there's not, like Trump uses a nuclear weapon and that very quickly becomes the legacy of the Trump administration. But the legacy of this era may end up being the wholesale rightward swing of the judiciary in the country. And unfortunately, it's something that will affect the country for a very, very long time. We'll continue following this and related LGBT rulings at various court levels in the future. That does it for today. We will have a new show and a new bonus show coming up tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.